Do not forsake wisdom, and she will protect you. Love her, and she will watch over you. The beginning of wisdom is this: get wisdom, though it cost you all you have. Get understanding. And now, here's Reverend Sue.
Joy in my soul, God is in control. I got Satan on my trail, but I'm singing all is well. He's attacking every day, but I'm watching while I pray. No matter the attack, I won't turn back, 'cause this means war.
Hello, how are you today? And you know something? It is good to be alive. And so many things have been going on. A lot of things happening. Pandemic, just everyday life, and we just blessed. Excuse me, to be a part of the living.
Amen.
But something has been on my mind for quite some time. School is reopened, and conversation with neighbors and conversation with friends, relatives. And I have so many different stories. Some parents are upset because their children have to go back to school. Some parents are happy because their kids are going back to school. Some of our children are happy, and some children are sad because they have to go back. Politicians, perhaps some mixed feelings. The school system, teachers, staff, mixed feelings. So I want to hear from, I think, a very highly intelligent person who's an educator. And his name is, I would call him Dr. Mark Tatum.
Not yet, but
Well,
thank you.
we're speaking in the future. And
Yes, ma'am.
he is, I admire him because he's outspoken. He's serious about his work. He's from Washington, D.C., metropolitan area. Mark is a classical trained musician who plays the saxophone, drum, and piano. I've heard him. He just doesn't put this on his resume. He's actually is a great musician. And he and his wife have 3 wonderful children, as gifted as they are. 2 boys ages 17 and 13, and a girl age 11. He's current adjunct professor in communications and is also a high school English teacher. He has a bachelor's and master's degrees in communication, another master's degree from Regent University School of Divinity in Practical Theology, and is currently pursuing a PhD in communications, also from Regent University. It is a pleasure to have him here today to talk about what's going on, what's happening, and his feeling about this reopening of our schools and our children, and where our children going because of these conflict, conversation, or the confusion, and all the things that are happening, even with teachers, because some teachers are very upset as well. So Mark, I'm going to call you Dr. Mark or Professor Mark, all the good things. How are you today?
I'm doing okay, considering everything that how you mentioned. We're living in very precarious times, but I'm also a believer. I believe God takes care of His own. So with that being said, I'm doing okay.
Yes. So according to the CDC, vaccinations and masks are the best preventive measures against COVID-19, okay? As an educator, as a teacher, do you agree, disagree, or offer other options right during this time now?
So I need to state for the record that, as you stated before, I'm just giving my opinions. I don't speak on behalf of any organization, any entity. This is just me as a lay teacher.
Yes.
I agree with science. What science finds out, I think that they are they are cutting edge in their findings and their research and things like that. So I tend to want to, and even as I'm getting my PhD now, it's a research PhD. So I'm finding that, research are where the better minds are, and as far as looking into a matter.
Mhm.
So all of that to say, I tend to believe what the science points to, what the science indicates in that matter. Like I mentioned before, I'm also a believer. Um, I don't want to allow fear to inform my decisions either, because there's a real, what the Bible calls a spirit of fear
Yes.
that goes around and frightens everybody and does an overcorrection
Mhm.
of good habits.
Mhm.
Um, I don't subscribe to the spirit of fear. But I do believe in the science. I do believe, we should stay maxed up. We should stay 6 feet apart
Mhm.
until everything is much better, if not all clear. So I live in that balance. I live in that balance of believing what the science says, but also not going overboard into spilling into fear.
Mhm. I would give you a personal example when it was time for me to do, I decided to do the vaccination. And it wasn't fear, it was just how my mind is. So I said, God, I talked to God. God, listen, you know everything about me. You know, you created me. You know my body. You know what I can take, what I cannot take. And I had to leave it with God. And that's exactly what I did. God, I read everything. I listened to the reports, but I wrestled with taking it or not taking it. And
Let me
I'm being honest. I mean, I didn't just say, "Oh, I'm going to go ahead and take the vaccination." That was not me. So I had, my husband was, "Yes, I'm going to take it," but I'm like, "Oh no!" But I had to meditate. I had to pray, not for one day, for days and days, and listen to God speak to me. Now that's me. That's my personal experience. I'm not putting it out for other people. That's what I had to do.
So let me tell you, my story is very similar. Um, Okay, so like you said, I listened to the science and the research, but as you kind of understand, there's also some conspiracy theories that are out there, and you don't want to subscribe to it. This is just my message to anybody. You don't want to subscribe to every conspiracy theory, because those are more hunches. Those are more like what your gut feeling is, and of course you may look online, you may look on YouTube and find a small trail of some dark truth. That's out there too. But my thing has always been, um, a person would be foolish to believe every conspiracy theory that's out there. But I also believe, again, here's my balance. I also believe that it would be foolish to believe none of them at all, because there's something to try to watch with the evil that is in this world, right? So I'll tell you what I did, Reverend Sue, is that as a teacher, we were strongly encouraged. I was at the point where we weren't required, but we were strongly encouraged to get vaccinated, and they made it free and easy for us. So I went into that realm. But I'll tell you, before I got it, before that nurse shot me up, I prayed. I said, "Hey, listen, are you a believer?" And I stopped right before she did. I said, "Because I want to pray over this thing, because I believe God, more than I do science." So we prayed. Then I was vaccinated. So that's just where my faith walk is. Like, okay, I'll go along with what I need to do, to be employed, to keep people safe, to follow the science, but I also believe God, like he supervises everything. So that's how I live with my vaccination.
Okay, so and thanks for sharing that, because that's real. That's real. I mean, we don't
Amen.
walk around and say, "Oh no, we just took it." No, I can't say that, but and you cannot say that. But we still believe in God, even today, while as we sit here, that God is in control of my body, and God gives me exactly what I think, what God thinks that my body needs. Um, Going back to the school, our children, because I'm thinking about the little children. I know you are not in the elementary or middle school, but the little children who actually come into school, and they don't understand the mask. They don't understand that I need to keep this mask on. Um, but you have teachers there being exposed to um, the children. Um, how do you feel about that?
Um, Education starts in the home. You know, how whatever the parents or the caregivers, the caretakers,
Mhm.
whatever their beliefs are, that's what the children or the household residents, that's where they're going to tend to believe. And so even as teachers, you know, we try to encourage, we try to influence our community in the right direction.
Mhm.
But we can't make anybody do anything. So, you know, for the smaller children, you know, who are kind of unsure, that's probably because, you know, whatever their home environment is, you know, the parents may not be all the way sure. They may be conspiracy theorists, or they may be faith zealots. So, you know, the way what they believe is probably hasn't been settled or confirmed yet. So I mean, so it's important for us as the greater community to try to, you know, to try to give truth to the information, you know, to try to allay fears as best we can. Um, I mean, and that's just it. You know, as a teacher, all I could do is try to hope that, you know, the people at home are making a sound and wise decision, rather than, you know, inputting fear or inputting resistance, to greater truth and greater science. So all we could do is just give great information, hope that we could be an influence, and pray for the best for our little ones.
And also, there is, I talked to some teachers, and some teachers fear. They chose not to take the vaccination, but they fear going to school, but they need a job. They fear going to school. And so you bring in now that energy into the workplace, but they know they have to work. And a lot of this teachers happen to be African American people of color, that, you know, I need a job, but my life is in danger. My life is being threatened now, because we have parents coming to bringing their children to school, and some of the kids have been tested positive for COVID.
That's unfortunate. I've heard about that too. You know, that type of behavior, you know, bringing your child to school when they're sick, that actually is not new. The main thing that's new is just now we have a very deadly, a nastier disease. But, you know, unfortunately, in certain communities, you know, parents have been bringing their children with runny noses and stomach aches and things like that. So they, you know, we try to discourage that, you know, but nowadays, you know, much more now than before. Hey, listen, you know, please don't bring your child if you know they're sick, if they're symptomatic, or if anybody in the house is symptomatic, you know, please keep them home. We're trying to encourage them. Um, but back to your point about teachers being fearful, I've seen that also. It's, I can say, funny enough, I have a coworker who every time she gets up from the keyboard, she goes and sanitizes her hand. Like it's like almost an OCD thing, where she just always constantly and I'm thinking, okay, well, she didn't go anywhere. She didn't touch much of anything except for her keyboard. But that's the type of fear-based mentality that she has, and it's, you know, kind of off-putting, but you can just tell that that's the state that she lives in.
Mhm.
But to answer that notion, um, again, like I mentioned before, education and school systems, we need to be an influence to the community of knowledge and of sound practices. We need to let people know, you know, follow the research, follow the science. You know, these people they know what they're talking about. They've done their work, they've done their homework.
Mhm.
That's how education could be an influence. But I gotta toot the horn of the church. Church needs to be an influence of giving people a sense of God's peace, of God's love and assurance. You know, the scripture says, you know, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of love, peace, and a sound mind.
Right.
That's, you know, that's the way that the church as an institution, school is an institution of the community, church is an institution of the community. This is where the church needs to step up and try to give the greater community a sound mind and of peace and of love in this whole process. And I think that could hopefully balance things out and make people feel a lot better about things.
That's a good point. That's a good point, because you kind of caught up in how I look at it. Like I said at the beginning, it's political issues going on. There are people are saying that no, we don't want the mask. In some states, they're saying, you know, if you do this in this particular county, you're going to be held accountable. You're not going to get funds. And then there are some parents said, no, we're not going to wear masks. Some parents said, no, we're going to wear masks. So it's not only like from a local perspective, it's become a political statement out here. So you pull, like it's like a war. You pull back and forth of the opponents and the advocates for masks and not masks. You as a community person, you as a preacher, you as a reverend, theologian, how could we, if you as a community, continue to educate our community, educate our parents and our teachers to understand that we have to also understand that a lot of this is political. It's a political thing. How do we get them to understand that and not get caught up in it, so that we can do the right thing in our community? Because we have to look after our community. We have to do that.
We have to. The only thing that comes to my mind is, they say for any good marriage or for any good relationship, you need good communication. Communication is the key. They say, in any established relationship. So I would say the same thing between the institution and the community, the greater community. We just need continued conversations. We need constant communication to let people, to say, this is what we're finding out. These are some different perspectives that you could choose and use from. Social media has done a good job as far as dispelling myths that are put out there. Mm-hmm. They do fact checking. So somebody puts up a post about COVID-19 and what it does or doesn't do. They actually do a good job with fact checking that information. They'll let you know, hey, that information is not quite right, or they'll point you to some additional resources. So I would say, to kind of answer that notion, what do we need to do to get people to understand this a little better, is just continually to communicate, like how social media does, fact check some things, dispel myths that are out there, continue to deliver good information. And with education, we just need, at the educational side, we just need to dress up ourselves as a good influence to the community. How can we influence and have a good rapport with our community? Same thing with the church. We want to be able to convey good spiritual information that's going to help people's minds and their hearts. How can we influence them in a positive direction? How can we persuade them? I think that's the word I'll land with. How can we persuade them towards, pro-social behaviors? It's not easy to do. We need to earn the trust of our communities. And so education and church, we need to be trustworthy in our approaches. It's a long, drawn-out process, but that's where we need to start. We need to be able to continue the conversations and upkeep these conversations so that we can point people in the right direction overall.
Do you have, and I don't want, you said from your personal opinion, so I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you have opportunity to talk to parents? Maybe you see them on the street, maybe you see them in your community, not necessarily at school, but talk to parents, and their children are attending your particular school or they're in your community, to just talk to them and see where they are with this mask or no mask, or vaccination or no vaccination. Or I want my child to go to school because I really don't have time to take care of my child. I mean, that's a statement I made because I know some parents who actually made that statement. So do you have an opportunity to talk to parents, to educate them from the individual perspective?
So here's the distinction. Yes, I have access to parents, especially on the high school level. At the college level,
right.
I could talk to them individually, but in the high school level, I have access to them. I have detailed informational records. What I don't have is a platform to be able to speak to them. So yes, I could talk to them individually, but I'm sure, the particular county that I work for, if they know that I'm going to be talking about, and you put it pretty well, because this thing has turned into a political conversation, and it really shouldn't be. But because I'm talking about these matters, I'm sure, my employer wouldn't want me to speak as if I were on a platform necessarily, speaking to these issues overall from a county perspective or whatever the case may be. So what I think needs to happen is that, in order to inform these parents, in order to have greater access, because I have access to talk to them about their individual, student accounts. But what needs to happen is we need to develop platforms. We need to develop forums, community assemblies, if you will, so that we can address these issues, on a platform basis. Bring in the experts, bring in the faith practitioners and faith administrators to kind of talk to them. So that's what needs to happen. So to answer the question more precisely, so no, I don't have an individual avenue where I could talk to these specific issues. But I think that's a good idea. We do need to develop these kinds of platforms so that we can collectively as a community increase these conversations.
With the COVID-19, the pandemic now, where do you think our education system is going as far as our young kids or our children? Where you think is headed?
Where do I think it is? So I'm not a prognosticator. I can't predict what's going to happen. I do have some feelings. The world is not the same, and I don't think the world is going to change back to be the same as it were, as much as I would like for it to. I'm a very much in-person, in classroom type of person. But you see what we're doing even now. We're Zooming, right? We're online, and
Right.
And our hopes as for humanity is that we can get back to what we consider normalcy, where we get back to in person. But the way that this world is turning, I don't know that it's going to go back to exactly that. Maybe a semblance of that, maybe a hybrid where we do some in person, some online. But let me just wrap that up to say that I don't think we're going to go back to normal. I don't think we're going to go back to normal, as it were. Where I think we're heading immediately, again, so I'll stick with the hybrid. I think hopefully, prayerfully, as things tamper down with this disease, there's been a lot of good things with these online meetings. It's saved with gas. It's saved with time. Where we had to do these large meetings and things like that. Now, we can do these, even administrative meetings, online, and we don't have to meet up and assemble and take more time and resources to do that. So that part is fine. The in-classroom part, that part it'll probably be a hybrid. Some folks will choose to be in person, some folks will be at home. There was a term that was coined during this pandemic. It is building the airplane as we fly.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird, how does that work? But that's just to say we're figuring it out as we go along. We're trying to put our best minds on the issue. How it's going to look in 2 years, 3 years, my best guess is going to be a hybrid. It's going to be a mix of what works and a mix of what needs to work. What that looks like exactly, I can't even say. I don't know.
Because we're learning every day, we're studying every day, research happening every single day. I agree with you.
Yeah.
But another thing is that social media also has spread misinformation. And I think that's something that we need to be very aware of. And when I say, well, you're young, I'm not, but as far as we're looking at our young people, they go to social media on a regular basis. And some of us, as an educator, that some of the information is totally misinformation. So how do you communicate with, from a political and anti-science advocates? The ones that are political, but they know that they know this misinformation, and then the anti-advocates for all the things that we're trying to do with our educational system. What would you do in reference to that?
Research shows, and I've done a fair amount of research on this, shows that there's not a lot that you can do with somebody whose mind is just dead set on their inherent biases. Some people are just intent on believing what they want to believe. You could put all the information and science in front of them. You could put even all the Bible verses and scriptures in front of them. Some people are just reprobate in their mind and their thinking. So it's tough to have those conversations, especially when they're online, because when they're online, there's sense of there's that sense of invincibility. I say what I say, and I can ignore whatever somebody says to me.
Right.
I mean, so from the faith side, the best we could do is pray for them. On the science and educational side, you know, we could just offer facts. I mean, it's not, it shouldn't be a shouting match. It shouldn't be a debate. You know, if they say something that's incorrect, if they put out a myth out there, you know, the best we could do is just offer, say, hey, I find that to not be true. If they come back, no, you're wrong. I say this, I say, well, you know what, I attempted my best. I just wanted to put, you know, but I just find it personally not useful to continually go back and forth with people online. You know, they say what they feel is right. You present some facts and a different perspective. If they don't take it, you've done your best. You know, you've done what you could do. And then again, pray for them, you know, silently. Hopefully they can, you know, be exposed to the light in some way. But as far as engaging with somebody who's just kind of dead set on their inherent biases, there's not a whole lot I find that there's not a whole lot that you could do with those types of persons.
As you were speaking, and we have opportunity with our children, especially our young children, to take time to talk to them and explain to them about really what's going on. It's amazing how our children grasp information when we give it to them. Love them and let them know that this is serious. And I think that going back to communication again, is give parents opportunity to spend time with their children, valuable time with their children, to let them know that this is serious, this is real. Because a 5-year-old, 6 or 7-year-old is not going to keep a mask on all day. It's just not going to. They're not programmed to do that. They're not going to do, especially when they have play time. They're just not going to do that. And so the teachers are vulnerable to catching various diseases from the children. So I take my hat off to teachers today. Tomorrow be the administrators, but today to teachers. And not because you're a teacher, but I feel like for teachers, they're on the front line. Teachers are on the front line.
Very much so.
And they're underpaid already, but they're on the front line.
And to your point, and what you're saying also, it's important for us, and I know this too, it's important for us to be transparent about what we're going through, what we're experiencing. You know, the fact that I have a family, you know, I have kids, that, you know, we're all susceptible to this. The fact that I struggle, you know, with this new dynamic, this new normal that we have, you know, so when I'm transparent, you know, and let them see that I'm human just like you, I find that connects with the students a little better, even for the younger ones. They see that, you know, I'm not just some authority figure, you know, speaking down to them, but I'm letting them know that I'm in this society with you. I'm figuring it out. You know, I may know just a little more, you know, or I may be a few steps ahead, but we're all still in the same boat, you know, so to speak. So I think that's important for teachers, for administrators, for anybody who's working in this, you know, to be honest, to be transparent with your feelings, let them know, listen, I have my fears as well.
Yeah.
You know, I'm greatly concerned for my family, for my own health.
Yes.
And that seems to kind of connect with people, you know, but then also just letting them know, but here's what I do know. Here's what I have researched. Here's some things that I do understand. And that seems to kind of coalesce people, you know, more than anything, more than it does separate people. So I find that, you know, transparency goes a very long way.
I'm glad you said that. And with that, we're going to close.
Okay.
But you said it. You said it very well. You're real. You have children. You have a family.
Yeah.
And you can get sick.
100%.
Can get sick. So you are all in it together, and we have to work it out. Work it out. And to our politicians, you know, like, hey, you have families. You have children. And it's not all about politics. It's not all about finances. It's about human lives. People are dying every single day. It's not about, you know, am I going to get the vote or am I going to give this party or that party? It's about our lives and trying to deal with this out here in our society. So
I'll just say that, and I appreciate the way you're saying this. It was just one last point I just needed to get out, just that what I mentioned earlier about just a balanced approach, because we've seen where some folks in the church world, they're the anti-maskers and they're the anti-vaxxers, so they don't want to do anything. But then that's also harming our community. And then then there's the opposite side of those who are just fear-based and they're scared that it might come their way. I believe there should be a balanced approach, knowing that what you're saying, that this is real, people are dying. So we have to be responsible to ourselves, to our family, and our greater community. It makes sense to have a balanced approach. Again, not living in fear, but just living responsibly. And once we and I agree that what you're saying, it's not a political thing. This is a humanity thing. We're trying to look out for each other. We're trying to look out for our own health. Just be responsible. And I think that should hopefully quell a lot of the angst that's happening and the trepidation that we all are feeling.
And to our listeners, you heard it from Mark Tatum. I call him professor, I call him a doctor, I call him reverend, I call him theologian. He's all of those. He's a father, and he's a husband, and he has feelings, and he's a teacher, he's an educator. So thank you for taking the time to listen to us today about a very serious subject. Our educators, our teachers, they've always been on the line. Every single day they're out there. Let us keep them in prayer and think about them and see where we're going. May God bless you. Continue to bless you. And Mark, thank you so much for being real.
My pleasure. Anytime.
The answer, it wasn't me. And I made up my mind to define my own destiny.